Good morning, folks. I hope everyone's having a great day. I just want to get started. Probably won't take the full hour, but of course, if there are questions at the end, we can be here for the full hour if everyone needs it. Welcome to SmartTank Training Thursdays. My name is Sarah Deitch. I'm a Customer Success Manager with Skybits, and on behalf of myself and the entire Skybits team, we want to welcome you to this training session. And thank you for joining the previous sessions. This is something new that we've rolled out, and we hope that you've learned some things that maybe you didn't know, some tricks, some tips along the way. Wanted to also make sure that everyone is aware that all of these sessions are recorded. So what we do is we put them on a list on our Skybits YouTube channel. So you're able to then view all of the tank trainings if you need to. So what you can do is go on to YouTube, go to the Skybits page, hit like, subscribe, and then you're able to view our content even if you don't subscribe, but it would mean the world to us if you would. We do have a lot of content in the tank industries. So it's not just the training programs, it's not just tank, it's not just fuels, it could be chemicals, could be all kinds of different topics. We do serve many vertical markets, so we are also in the asset tracking field. We've been for many, many years. It's our core group of customers, of course, but we do have information there. So most people have trailers in their business. So if you're looking into that, please give those videos a watch as well. And again, we have a ton of tank content, not just the training videos. So there's plenty there to watch. So if you have a minute, please go to the Skybits YouTube channel, subscribe, and view some of the videos. And again, thank you. So these 1 hour sessions, as I had started to already talk about, were kind of developed through the customer success, customer experience department in order to reach out to our customers. Make sure you all knew that we're real people, we're here, we want to talk to you, and vice versa, right? So at the end of the session, we open it up for questions. If you have specific account questions, they can be dealt with generally with our telemetry support team, our wonderful team who's tenured and they can answer all your questions. Or if you have a success manager, please reach out to one of us and we'll be able to help you with your specific account related questions. So we're going to do a live demonstration today. Try to stay away from PowerPoints because they get kind of boring. So no PowerPoint slides other than the one that's up on the screen right now, and a few housekeeping items. So we mute everyone as you come into the room. So we don't have any background noise, of course. I may have some background noise. I have pets that like to bark. Trying to keep that muted, but it's impossible. So if you've muted yourself and then later you want to speak and ask a question or make a comment, you have to unmute yourself first. So if you've muted yourself, just take yourself off mute. We've already done that for you. Again, we've factored in time for a question and answer at the end. And you can also type in the chat, you can type in the question section. My colleagues are on the call as well. Craig Graham, who is also a customer success manager, and Allison Ramos, who is the manager of the telemetry support and truck support groups. So you have many years of expertise on the phone call right now to answer your questions as we're going through. And again, everything will be recorded for the YouTube channel. So this week, we have 2 weeks of structuring SmartTank to work for you. And what we're going to look at today is setting up organizations and setting up locations. So let me move over to SmartTank. We have a demo account. Obviously, we're not using live account of any of our customers. And what we're going to do today is kind of just talk about organizational structure, location structure. Everyone has locations. I know that, well, all of my customers I know, anyone who I deal with has locations in their account, but some customers, so I have a mixed bag, right? So organizational structure is the very top is the top of the organizational structure is your overall account, right? The umbrella of your account. Some of my customers, they have a flat organization. What that means is just the The way your account was set up when you originally, started with SmartTank is just that one organizational level. So up here, when you're in an org, you only have one choice. That's just that one organization, which is your top organization in the hierarchy. Then, we'll move downward and we'll talk about locations. And then next 2 weeks, we're going to talk about users and tanks. So when you're setting up a user, how you then kind of figure out where they fit in the organizational structure, what kind of account preferences they're going to have. And then when you set up your tanks, exactly, where will you put them? And how are you going to structure your organizations? And if you want one, you keep it the way it is, or if you want to then have multi-organizational levels, and then the locations that fit into each of those groups. So the sub-organization setup is really, really simple. So when you're in SmartTank and you want to set up a sub-org, just know that I'm not going to set up a sub-org because you can't delete them once you've created them. And there's a reason for that. There's a reason you can't delete things from the system, because it may be attached to some data that can't go away forever. But when you're in creating a sub-organization, so you know where you are based on this line here of hierarchy, right? So it starts at the top and then you move over. I'm in the Skybits Energy account, suborg, which is a suborg of SmartTank Demo Partner Views. So I don't want to go into the big organization. I'm going to reside here in Skybits Energy. So if I want to create another organization, I'm just going to simply click on organizations. And once I get to this page, it's pretty simple. If you have multi-organizations and you're able to view everything, you're an admin, overall admin of the account, or you have been given permissions by the admin to be able to see all of the organizations, all of the tanks, you're able to see everything that would be in your, your organization and any suborgs that flow down from that one. So I only have Skybits Energy here, but if I add a new organization, and it does always tell me the parent organization of the one that I've created. I want to add a new organization. And this is really easy, right? So there's not a lot of setup here in the initial stage, but if you're going to move tanks in, there's a little bit of lifting to get the tanks into the organization, the suborg. So you can name it whatever you want. Anything with a red asterisk is a required field, right? So the organization name, so I would be like Skybits here. Thursday, it's getting close to Friday, it can be a little silly today, right? Address 1 with the asterisk, 123 Main Street. And of course you use capital letters, type it in correctly. You really want to, here, and I shouldn't, take it lightly, you definitely want to type everything in correctly. I mean, you can edit, but you just want to make sure you set it up properly. And then that's where I am. So let's go here. Sorry, folks. I love this autofill sometimes, but not always. And where you are, what state you're in, and what your zip is, and country, yes, you want to fill that out. You can fill out phone number. I don't know, does everybody have a fax number? I think there's still some fax numbers around. And primary contact. So you will have a drop-down list here, but you can assign a primary contact from your contacts that exist in the account already, and organization type. And it's generally going to be a customer, or it'll, if you have other types of choices here in the organization type, based on your highest organizational level, what you have available in there. So then here you would just update the organization details. That would update this information. Now down here, the delivery efficiency and forecasting parameters. So this is going to then drive some efficiency reporting that we do have available. And I believe we reviewed reporting in another session on YouTube, so you can watch it on YouTube. But there is efficiency reporting within the system. You want to put in your average delivery cost and your target delivery percentage. So this would be specific to your organization, specific to your company. And then if you're making a suborg, you want to consider where you are creating a suborg here. But You definitely want to fill this out. If efficiency is important, which I'm assuming it would be, you purchased telemetry to begin with, your average delivery cost and your target delivery percentage will then drive that reporting information. Active days, meaning are we active all days of the week? If not Sunday, I'm assuming most companies are, especially in this industry, there's no downtime. But if you need to make modifications here, you're able to click off some days of the week. And then you could update all of these organization details right here. And I do assume that most people would want to fill these out. So when you create the organization, I would take that into consideration first. And then not come back and do it later, because you kind of want to do it at the point of creation, right? It makes it much smoother in the long run. So then you would hit update, and then it would become, I'm not going to create an organization, but you would then see that here in this organization list, which you can then, as you add organizations, if you do, you would then be able to sort them by any of these columns that you have here. The little arrow would then be present, so you can organize them that way. So that part was pretty easy. Now, next week we're going to talk about moving tanks into organizations, but moving tanks into organizations, you have to have special permissions. I'll just review it very quickly, what tab you need to look for. It's the service tab. So when you're in the tank itself, you have to make sure that you are able to view, and I apologize if there's a little delay here, that you have the service tab right here. So that's the most important tab to have. If you're able to see that tab, fantastic. If you can't see that tab, then you're not able to move. You're not able to move the tanks into that organization. So just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of that. And then the next, I'd say, most important thing here is just looking at so locations are important. We're going to talk about that next. But when we talk about organizations, you have to really consider if you want to break your tanks out that way, right? Locations are basically what they're called. It's an actual location, or virtual. So we have your stock locations, your receiving locations. You see those. Every customer has those. And then usually customer sites, any place that you go to on a regular basis, you're going to move your tanks in there, because it then becomes one of the sorting features, of course, in the tank grid. But to create new organizations, if you want to stay, with just using your locations as your main way to, organize your tanks, really, for lack of a better word, then that's fine. If you want to get deeper, again, I have customers that do both. They have different branches. So what they'll do is they have one main hierarchy. Of course, you have your count set up with the main org, and then those sub-orgs or child organizations will then allow you to pull tanks in that are at your Seattle, Washington location, your Key West location in Florida. So you can do it that way. And then once you've suborged all of your company's locations, then within those suborgs, you then have the ability to say, hey, my Seattle, Washington folks, we have 20 customers that we're servicing. We'll make 20 locations. The Key West, Florida has 10. Oklahoma City, Oklahoma has 30. So we're going to look to adding orgs if you haven't already, and you're pretty embedded in working with SmartTank. Really, it's a carefully made decision. It's not just, hey, I just want to add some suborgs, right? It's just, you have to make the decision carefully. It's then going to kind of change the structure of what you view, but then it adds another level of, hey, who can look at what? My folks in Seattle, Washington are only looking at my Seattle, Washington tanks. It makes it a little bit easier if you're adding, removing users or deactivating users, really, to then say, hey, I want them just to be able to see this Seattle, Washington. It makes it a little bit easier to do that. So heavy lifting aside, if you have an account that's pretty established and you have a bunch of tanks that you'd have to move around, really you got to kind of look at the goal, and you can work on this with your CSM or with our telemetry support group. Is really they do more than troubleshoot. They have a lot of knowledge. So might want to talk through it. Hey, I have an idea from that training session. I heard I could make suborgs. Does it make sense to do that? And kind of lay out like a little flow chart of exactly how you would want to do it. Because again, once it's done, it's great. The original upkeep, the original moving of the tanks could get a little cumbersome. But don't let that deter you, because once it's set up, then moving tanks into the suborgs becomes much easier. There's not so many to do. So putting the suborgs aside, talking about locations. So locations then are also, it's a group of tanks at the same physical address, right? It's really simple, just looking at it that way. I don't have any customers that I deal with that don't have a bunch of locations. So if we go into the locations section, we'll look at these here. This is very small because it's in a demo account, but most of my customers, you definitely have to scroll down to see all of their locations. And we're showing only the active locations. If you need to you lost an account, you're no longer servicing a certain construction site, whatever it is, you have to make a location, you have to deactivate it. Sorry, I'm trying to use the right word there. So if you go into, say, one of these locations, you're able to make it, you're able to unclick this box and hit update, and it won't be an active location anymore. So that's one thing that you have to consider. This locations list can get really, really long, again, as you add customers. Sometimes you have a couple people adding locations at the same time. You have, I've seen all kinds of things going on. We have duplicates of locations. We have this, we have that. You can't remove them from the account, but you can make them inactive so that when you're looking at only active, that's all you will see. So we have to keep them in. Once they're created, they can't go away forever. You can just hide them, so you don't have to look at them anymore. So when you want to create a location and add one, it's really simple, just like adding the organization. You just add a location. And then I did click the box. I know I did. So just give it a second. So when you add the location, it's going to be very similar to, there we go, adding an organization. Location, name, address. Of course, we have the asterisks again. Put in as much information as you can, because then what happens is, when you're in SmartTank looking at tank levels, in here getting, daily dispatch stuff, shored up, you don't have to go to another system and then find Bob Smith's phone number. Bob Smith is the guy at the, he's at the location. So you can put notes in here, you can put different things in here, you can put this guy's phone number in here, which you probably would want to do. So you have a whole bunch of information you can put in here and then update it. And then what it'll do is it'll set that pin here so you can see where it is. And then down here we have the same information, but it's given to us by the organization analytics, but you can override it at this location, right? So average delivery cost, target delivery percentage. See how I can't click in the box right now and I can't click these off? Well, if I click on this, it'll allow me to then override the analytics and I can put the information in myself. And that would just be for this location. So then you would update the location once you put all of the information in, just like you did with the organization, and it would become part of your list. So we can, at this point, move tanks to this location. A lot of you have already done this because this is pretty typical work for people to be doing. But if you've already established a location, you can also go into the location, say, hey, I got to move some more tanks into Skybit's headquarters. And at this point, you can then view all the tanks at the location. How many tanks are there? See, this is a hyperlink. And then, of course, you can still, once you've created the location, you can then go back and move tanks to this location. So you're able to, constantly update it. You can update the information, anything that you have to update. The one thing is, like, if you ever need a location ID, that's where this is right here. Organizations have their own IDs as well. Each one has its own individual once it's been created. So there's, information here. Once it's been created, you can come back and edit, but then you can also view the tanks once you started to move them in. So there's a bunch of different information here. And when you're viewing your tank list, of course, organization and location are two of the main ways that you can filter your data, right? So you want to make sure that you spell things correctly, that you're not well, if you want to capitalize all the letters, just make sure you do that on all of them. But you want to keep the data consistent. You want to do that with all of the data that you're inputting into SmartTank. I see a lot of customers kind of like, ooh, we kind of messed up there on, naming. If you have a number that's associated with these customers and the location, please, by all means, put the number in here. If that's an easier way to sort it, your back office system has a number for each of your customers, whatever that might be. If you want to put that in SmartTank, because then that makes sense to you, please, by all means, do that. Make sure that the data that you input, I'll say it again, because I know a lot of customers that have had to go back and do a lot of editing because of, there's not consistency across the board with the naming conventions of organizations, suborgs, the locations, making sure that they're all similar, so that when you go to click, location name, and you want to use that as a filter, or you go into filters and want to type in a location name, because that's all you want to see. You want to create a TVP. You only want to see sales monitors. Make sure that the way you name it is the way that you see it consistently throughout your organization in your other systems, because then it makes more sense here, and you're not as like, I don't know why I'm not seeing my sales monitors. Well, because you maybe misspelled it somewhere. So just make sure that everything is tightened up in that respect. So that's, that could really, if you have lots of tanks, customers with thousands of tanks, and when they want to just be able to sort stuff, if they've misnamed something, it becomes a little bit more difficult to do that. So just a tip to make sure that everyone's, on the same page with that. So as far as organizations, locations, they're just more ways that you're able to, first of all, like I'd mentioned at the beginning, kind of wrapping it up here, it's a little early, but organizations allow you multiple levels of access for your users, reporting functionality for your tanks, a way to segregate them from each other. Again, you can keep it, as I said, it's called a flat organization with just that parent org at the top, and all of the locations are really how you kind of filter through your information. Locations, everyone uses them, so just make sure you're really clear on how to set them up, setting them up properly, making sure that then you're checking your spelling, checking all of that stuff, because it makes sense to do that, and it's important in the process here. So went over organizations, went over locations, like I'd mentioned. We're going to talk about moving tanks, users. That takes a little more time, the user setup. So we'll talk about users, permissions, moving tanks, and setting up tanks in the organizations. We've already talked about tank setup. Now we'll just talk about how to move them from one org to the next if you have multiple. That'll be in 2 weeks from today. So what I want to do was open it up and see if there were any questions in the group. So I do have a question here. What is the need to have several? What is the need to have several organizations and or suborgs? I hope I answered that, Deborah. I had mentioned different areas of the country, or even different areas of your state, and it also allows you to easily then give access to certain folks at your organization who need to see all of the locations in the one sub-organization, but they don't need to see the broad organization. They don't need to see all of it. It's easier to allow your users access that way, primarily. I hope that answered your question, Deborah. Does anybody see that one question? And that was it. Any other questions? You can raise your hand, you can type in the chat. Sorry, my chat just went away. All right, I don't see any other questions. I am not opposed to giving people time back, so I know we're all busy. We can wrap it up then. So again, what I wanted to talk about was at the end of the session, I always talk about the YouTube channel. Again, yes, I push our YouTube channel because it's fantastic. So go to YouTube, subscribe to the Skybits YouTube channel. And I really want to thank y'all for attending. And again, Deborah, I hope I answered your question. We really have worked pretty hard on putting together some sessions for our customers based on, the flow of the website, of the user interface, how to set things up, how to make sure that you're properly, we give tips and tricks. Like, I know it's not a tip and a trick to tell people to spell things correctly, but I've seen many, many misspelled words or words that were just kind of abbreviated and not making sense. So, we don't think about that in the day-to-day when we're working, 10-hour days and we're like, I don't care about spelling words, but I know that when it comes down to it, ensuring that your company has a set standard and protocol for setting up SmartTank, that it makes everyone's life easier in the long run for, many, many different reasons. But so we want to thank you all for attending and having been attending over these past few months. Like I had said, next week we are going, not next week, I apologize, 2 weeks from today on May 6th, I can't believe it's May already, we will be talking about structuring SmartTank to work for you part 2, which as I mentioned, we'll talk about users, moving tanks, organizational structure, and how to fit your users into it where they belong, so that, they can only see what they need to see. And I really, really thank everyone for attending. If you have questions after this session, please don't hesitate to reach out to your success manager if you have one, or our fantastic, again, like I had mentioned, I can't say enough about the telemetry support group. Give them a call, shoot them an email, ask questions. They will help you out. And I hope everyone attends again in 2 weeks. And I thank you all. Thank you to my colleagues for being on the call, and enjoy the rest of your day.